It's an important topic because once the crime has been committed, it's very difficult to unwind it. So we want to make sure that we're preventing the crime at the front end. And we're going to have a presenter, as I said, from the Office of Attorney General, Agent Philip Little. We also have other notable attendees here. We have Bethel Park Police Chief John Mackey. We have Detective Fred Paganigo from the Bethel Park Police Department, who will be on hand to answer questions as well. And we have District Magistrate Judge Ron Arnone, who I'm going to call up in a little bit here to say a few words. And Judge Arnone is a Bethel Park resident and was an agent in the Attorney General's office. So he's particularly aware of this problem. So we want to try to make sure that we provide all the information to residents. It's also on Bethel Park TV, so if you miss something here or if anyone wants to watch it at home who wasn't able to attend today, we're going to put this on BPTV to make sure that people have information. They have this information accessible so they can prevent identity theft. And even scams of $50 or $100 can have dire consequences for individuals, particularly seniors. And we want to make sure that we're preventing this. And what you're going to learn today is what identity theft is, the scope of the problem of identity theft, how your personal information can be obtained, and I think most importantly, the ways that you can protect yourself from having that information obtained. And following the presentation from Agent Little, we're going to allow for Q&A. So if you have any questions, certainly during the presentation, I'm sure Philip wouldn't mind if you just raise your hand and speak with that question, or afterwards, if you have a question, feel free to raise it. And this is one of those topics where so much, particularly for the general public, is not known. So what we always encourage folks to do is, if you have a question, feel free to ask it. Even if you're not sure, it's a pertinent question, even if you're not sure it's a question that other people may not have the answer to, ask the question, because we want to make sure that all of this information is accessible. And one of my roles, one of my most important roles as your state senator, is to make sure that we're providing this information to you directly, and to make sure that we're tapping into the experts out there, whether it be the Attorney General's office, whether it be local law enforcement through the Bethel Park Police Department, whether it be through our judicial system with Judge Arnone. I want to make sure that we're bringing this information to all of you right at your fingertips, so that if you have a question today, you can ask it. If you have a question in the upcoming days, you can feel free to reach out to the police department, to reach out to the Attorney General's office, reach out to Judge Arnone, or reach out to my office and ask that question. Because frequently what will happen is you go home, you think of a question you didn't think of today, and you may want an answer to that question. So feel free to reach out to any of us if you have a question in the upcoming days that we weren't able to answer today, or that you didn't think of today. So what I want to do initially is bring up Magisterial Judge Ron Arnone. Ron was appointed to the position in April of this year, and has done an outstanding job getting up and running, getting his feet on the ground, taking over for Judge Wida, who had very difficult shoes to fill, very big shoes to fill. We all know the great job that Judge Wida did in the South Hills, and Judge Arnone has really gotten off to a great running start. And I'm very pleased to welcome up Judge Arnone to say a few words. So Ron Arnone.
Thank you, Senator. Welcome, everybody. First of all, I do want to say that Senator Smith, he has done a great job trying to get people educated on so many different fronts that affect our community and affect us as individuals. Him and his office have been very proactive in working with his constituents to inform us of what's going on in our communities and how we can better be served and obtain information to protect us from those that mean us harm. So let's applaud Senator Smith for the great job that he's done for us in our district. With regard to the Attorney General's office in this forum that you're about to see, as Senator Smith alluded to, I spent 11 years with the Attorney General's office in the criminal division, and I was involved in prosecuting many different types of cases. Agent Phillips will have an excellent program because the Attorney General's office is the agency that does such a great job in bringing to the table information to get out to the public and inform the public and educate the public on different types of crimes and different types of issues that affect us as individuals and as groups. And the Attorney General's office does it better than anyone. And really, when it comes to identity theft, the Attorney General's office is second to none. And Senator Smith's office, and working with the AG's office in conjunction with all the state agencies, are really on the cutting edge of making sure that citizens are protected. And they do a very good job at that. And the Senator is always on top of legislation to, again, protect us all. So I don't want to belabor, because I know you guys want to get to the meat and bones here of being informed about identity theft, but I can tell you from the judicial side, my office is here to help in any way that we can and prosecute those that, again, wish to try to deceive anyone, including our senior population. And sometimes seniors are very vulnerable because they don't get out there and get the information. So I applaud you for being here and trying to be informed. And our police departments in this area are really good, and the chief does a great job, and his detectives in making sure that we follow up with these cases. And believe me, I take these types of crimes very seriously, and we will punish those that, again, wish to harm our citizenry and try to obtain their identity to try to ruin somebody's life. And that's really ends up with happening here. If you get your identity stolen, it really adversely affects your life. So follow the program. I'm not going to steal your thunder there, Agent Phillips. I know you'll do a good job, and I've been through these seminars. They're excellent. And anyways, thanks for having me here. I will be here for questions after. I'm glad to answer any questions you might have. And again, thank you, Senator Smith, for having us all and for putting on this great program.
Thank you very much, Judge. And also want to make sure that we thank the municipality of Bethel Park and the Bethel Park Community Center as someone who was born and raised in Bethel Park, and what the Bethel Park, what the municipality does, and the resource we have with the community center here. It's really wonderful. So without further ado, I want to bring up the star of the show, Philip Little, who is the Education and Outreach Specialist with the Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General. He does a great job, not only on the identity theft issue, but we had Philip out in a different part of my district to do a seminar with Attorney General Kane on cyber safety. So he does a tremendous job, and I'm very happy to invite Philip Little up to the stage to do the presentation on identity theft. So without further ado, Philip Little from the Office of Attorney General. And thanks again, everyone, for coming.
Thank you, Senator. Good morning, everyone. How are we? Good, good, good. My name is Philip Little, and I'm the Education and Outreach Specialist with the Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General. And on behalf of the office and our Attorney General, Kathleen Kane, I want to thank you guys for coming out to this very important presentation. As you can see behind me, we're obviously talking about identity theft. And I want to first say that no, that is not me. In that picture, they're putting the driver's license on. Some people mistake me for being that, but that is not me. But one of the first things I want to talk about is identity theft, and what is it that identity thieves are looking for? And when we look at this slide, I think of it as an old zombie movie. And if we think of identity thieves as zombies coming after us, that they're invading us, and what can we do? What are they coming for from us? Well, here's a number of different things that we're looking at that they're coming after us for. It's not just what we think of as our credit card numbers and our social security numbers. Those are the two main things that we think of, but there's more to it than that. And I have some examples of different sets of numbers that identity thieves may be looking for. Up here in the corner, this may resemble something as a PA driver's license number. Down here, we may have a social security number. of here may even be a bank account number or a life insurance policy number. Basically, what identity thieves are looking for is any individual number that identifies you and you alone. So we need to stop thinking in terms of just simply our social security number, our bank account number. There's more to it than that. They're looking for any type of personal number that identifies you and you alone. But you guys are in luck, because what we're going to learn today is some little tips and tricks that we can do to keep ourselves out of harm's ways. We know a lot about what we're going to talk about, but the issue is that it's always in the back of our mind. And when we leave here, the idea is that we want to keep it in the front of our mind in case we ever have something like this happen to us. So before we go any further, let's talk about what identity theft is. And simply, this is when someone uses your personal information to commit fraud in your name. Now here on the picture, I have a rabbit and I have a little puppy dog, and they look the same, right? So if we're talking about this in terms of identity theft, and we're looking at the rabbit and the dog, they're the same color, right? But they're not the same animal. So, sir, you sat in the front, so I'm going to pick on you for today's presentation. I hope you're okay with that. So you and I don't look alike. We are not the same person. But if I were to take your identity, on paper, I'm trying to be you. I'm trying to camouflage myself as you. Looking just like this animal, this rabbit and this dog, they look similar, but they're not. And that's what we're seeing with identity thieves. They're trying to mask themselves to be us on paper and take our identities and get monetary gain out of it. So now we're going to take a look at the scope of the problem, how big of a problem this really is to us as people having our identities taken in this issue in hand. And the first thing we want to talk about is that it funds terrorism. We've seen that a lot of identity thieves are overseas, international, and a lot of these identity thieves, the money that's used to take from us is funded towards terrorism. When we look at it domestically also, it's also tied to organized crime. So anytime, pretty much when identities are taken, money's taken from there, it's tied to some type of crime and things like that. So it's not something that we want our money taken from. Obviously, when we look at terroristic organizations, we all know the horrific events that have happened here on September 11th. And if we ever had any money taken from us for something like that, that'd be an awful feeling. Next, it hurts the American economy, and we're going to tie that into something here in a moment I'll talk about. But I also want to talk about contributing to stress, is that this is a very, very sticky situation. It's a lot of painstaking hours. Has anyone ever been a victim of identity theft here? So I can tell you that this is stressful. This is not a walk in the park. This is not fun, right? Right. And it's in some cases, it's going to follow you for years, depending on what's taken from you. So it's really something that we owe to each other to make sure that no one ever falls victim to this. Lastly, it hurts the American economy and the idea that we all pay a higher price for goods. And what I mean by that is, say my identity's taken and someone gets my credit card and goes to one of the big TV outlets and buys a $500 TV. Well, I call my credit card company and say this is a fraudulent purchase, or maybe I have fraud protection and they figure that out. Well, I get the money refunded, right? But they have to get the money back somehow, and they'll go after the manufacturer or the store where the TV was bought. So if this happens over a number of times per year, say that same TV that was $500 a year ago may be $525 today. And we know how tough the economy can be, and we want to make our dollar go as far as it can. So we really owe it to each other, our friends and family, to make sure that no one falls victim to identity theft. The next part of the presentation is where I want to ask you guys some questions on these statistics that we have here to get a real good idea of how big of a problem it is in the U.S. And the first question is, how many people do you think become a victim of identity theft per year in the United States? Does anyone want to take a guess? Anyone? 100,000? Okay. Anyone else? Yes. You're absolutely right. It is millions. It's actually to the tune of about 10 million people a year. So this isn't some small organization that's going on. We're seeing 10 million people a year in the United States alone. So that's quite a big number. The next question we're going to want you guys to look at is, what do you think the approximate one-year total cost of identity fraud is in the United States? How much does this cost us? Does anyone want to take a guess on that dollar figure? Billions? You're absolutely right. about $58 billion a year that we see identity theft really giving us problems and how much it's costing us as Americans. This next question you may be able to answer, unfortunately, but this is where we get the idea of how long it takes an identity fraud case to be resolved. And how many hours do you think it takes to get resolved in just one case? I heard thousands. Okay. Anyone else? Well, it's a little less than 1,000, I'll be honest. Actually, a lot less. On average, it's about 40-plus hours. But I want to remind you that this is 40 hours on the phone, writing letters, writing emails, 40 hours that you can be doing something else. And it's something you just don't want to have to do. If those weren't alarming enough, I think this next statistic is probably the most disappointing. And over half of all identity theft is perpetrated by who? Who do you think these people are? Does anyone know? Anyone have a shot? Friends. You're absolutely right. It's family, relatives, friends, perhaps an in-home service provider. It's people that we trust and let into our houses and give a little too much trust before we really should let them in. And that's what we're seeing, is that over half of all identity theft cases are done by people that we know. Identity thieves seem to want to target the senior population. And it's usually for one of two reasons why they target the senior population. We see one, that identity thieves seem to believe that seniors have this nest egg at home, right? You've worked all these years and you have this nest egg tucked away, and they want to target that and get at that nest egg. Secondly is, and this is no fault to you, but you grew up in a day where everyone had their doors unlocked down the street, right? And anyone could come in and it wasn't an issue. And you're trusting. You let people in your house. And that's not a fault to you whatsoever. But we're seeing that's not the same way it used to be. And people being more trusting and letting people in our houses, we really don't know who they are. And we should really take a check at who we're letting in. And identity thieves are taking advantage of that. So I want to introduce you real quick to Ed and Jocelyn. Here's a young couple. There's a young couple. I'd like to think that probably in the top, they're on a boat, maybe on their honeymoon. And when you see a young couple like this, do you really think this is someone that should be worried about identity theft? I mean, when we think about identity theft, we usually think of the senior population. We don't think of young people who would even be involved in something like this. But I want you to meet Ed and Jocelyn after they were arrested for stealing over $116,000 of goods and services. See, what Ed and Jocelyn did was they lived near a senior home, and they befriended people there. And they said, let me walk your dog. Let me get the mail for you if it's hot out. Let me water your plants if you leave. And they gained this trust with people. And after the course of time, as time went on, maybe someone left to go on vacation. They'd say, hey, give me your key. I'll go ahead and get your mail, bring it in your house. I'll walk your dog. No need to take it to the kennel. I'll water your plants. You go have a good time. We'll take care of everything for you. They said, sure, that sounds like a good idea. But in reality, Ed and Jocelyn had an ulterior motive, that they were actually taking their identities, rooting through their mail, rooting through their personal things, and trying to take their identities, which they succeeded, but the law won there in this case. But anyone, we should really be careful. Do we really know who these people are that we're letting into our house? And that's something we really need to be careful and aware of. So let's talk about how our identities are taken. And it usually falls into three separate categories. And the first one we see is carelessness. And what I mean by that is that you may leave something out on a counter in your house. So if you invite someone in your house, as we talked about, you may leave out a bank statement just laying out. You may leave out a life insurance policy or annuities, whatever it is, something that has a personal ID number on it, just laying out, not thinking much about it. And if it falls upon stray eyes, they can be taken. Also, when you look at it, maybe if you're out giving your Social Security number, if you're at the bank and you maybe forgot your card or have to prove who you are, sometimes they ask for things like that. If you're talking a little too loud, it may fall on some ears you don't want to have someone hear that number. And these are the careless things that we do we need to really be careful of. If we have mail, how many of you shred it that have personal information on it? Does anyone shred here? That's great. That's great. Senator, I believe you had a shredding event. You have one coming up, correct? that'd be a great time. If you guys don't shred, take it down there. You never want to leave personal documents, just do the one rip and then throw it in the trash. Really be careful, because those personal documents have some important numbers on there, and we really want to make sure that you guys aren't taken advantage of. The second category we see is the theft, and this is the stereotypical, the purse snatching, the wallet taking that we think of pickpocketing, and this is what we see theft as. My question to you is, and you don't have to raise your hand here, but I just want to make a point. How many of you carry your Social Security card on you right now today? Have it on you physically? Anyone? Okay, so I see a couple hands. And my question to you is, if you have it today, are you applying for a job? No? The reason I ask that is because usually employers, when you very first get employed, they want to take a photocopy of your Social Security number. What if your purse were taken right now, or your wallet were taken right now? Your Social Security card's in there. And one of the toughest things, the last thing you want taken from you, the last thing of anything, is your Social Security number. So this is something we really need to be aware of. If we have this on us, we have a safe place at home, some spot that no one knows of. We should probably keep it at home. Any of you guys keep your credit cards on you? And I'm not talking about the ones that work everywhere, but the store-specific ones, to the department store that only works there, or the hardware store. Any of you guys carry those on you at all times? Are you guys going there today? If we're not going there, this might be wise to not carry on us. Because again, what if our purses, what if our wallets were taken? The more we carry, the bigger target we become. Now, I can't tell you what to do, but I would advise you, if you're going to carry these things on you, make sure you have a record of home of what the numbers are on the card, what the card is, what the expiration date is, what the phone number on the back is, the security code on the back. As much information you have for that card, keep a record of it at home, because if the unthinkable happens and your wallet or purse were taken and that card was gone, you don't know the numbers of your card off the top of your head. You may, but a lot of people don't. You always want to keep record. If you have those cards, those store-specific places, what I do is I have them too, but I keep them in a safe place. So when my wife thinks that I need to go buy 1,000 bags of mulch for our front yard, I go to my safe, get out my hardware card, take it to the store, buy the mulch, bring it back home, and put it back in the safe. I don't carry it on me all the time. When I know I'm going there is when I use it. So I try to keep myself at as low risk as I can. The last category is trickery, and this is the big one that we're seeing. This is the scams. And we're going to talk more in depth here in a minute about what different types of scams that we're seeing, and you're going to get a good idea of what they sound like, what they're asking for, and the red flags to be aware of with these scams. But first, we're going to take a look at some technical devices, and I just want to point out a couple here real quick. Is this first one right here, we have a photocopier. And when you see that, you would think, what does a photocopier have to do with identity theft? Well, a lot of photocopiers now, the newer ones, have memory on them. So what was ever photocopied on there at that moment is that there's a memory on that photocopier. So if you photocopy a Social Security card, anything that had a personal ID on there, this could take memory and take a photocopy of your Social Security card, driver's license, whatever it is. And now if someone were to take that memory drive out of there, they now have your numbers. Piece of advice, if you have to make a copy of something, let's just say Social Security card, get a strip of paper and where it's at right there, where the numbers are, perhaps put it over a couple of the banks of numbers, put a strip of paper over it, make the copy, so on the photocopy it didn't get all the numbers. When it comes off, write those numbers in. So now that you have that copy, but the photocopier didn't take a complete copy of what all the numbers are, something we might want to do. Over here we have a computer. We're going to talk about in a little bit what internet sites look like, scams, and what they look like, and what we call spoofed websites. And we're going to talk about also telephone and text messaging scams here in a moment. The other thing I want to talk about are skimmer devices. Has anyone ever heard of the term skimmer devices? Yeah, I see a few hands go up. And what these are devices that people use to try to get your credit card information. And the first one we see right here is where this hand is holding this box. This is a skimmer device that fits over top of an ATM machine. And what happens is you put your card in. You pull it out. But it goes through that skimmer device, and it also goes through the ATM machine. And you put your PIN in, and the skimmer device has that, and you get your money out, you get your receipt, you get your card back, and go about your merry day thinking nothing happened. But in reality, that skimmer device has just taken your identity, and you didn't know. If you go to an ATM machine, give it a wiggle. You don't have to try to rip it, but usually they're on there pretty flimsily, maybe Velcroed on. There's adhesive Velcro. It's not on there really, really tight. So just give it a wiggle. And if you see something that may be suspicious, by all means, don't use it. Notify the bank manager if it's a bank. If it's at a supermarket, let the supermarket manager know, whoever it is. And please don't let anyone else that time use it. You would never want someone else, again, to fall victim of identity theft. Our other big skimmer device that we're seeing nowadays is this little portable one right here. And what these are used for legitimately are mobile vendors a lot of times use them. You guys are going to go to the arts and crafts fairs, and you're outside and people are selling things. And what these are used for is that they fit inside your cell phones. They kind of click into your cell phone, and they'll swipe your card through there, and that's how you make the transaction to buy a good. But what we're seeing is that identity thieves are giving these skimmers to, let's say, restaurant workers, and they may pay them $10 to $20 per swipe. And what will happen is when you go to pay for your meal, you give them your card, and do you really know where your card goes? We don't. It just goes, and we think nothing of it. Well, what this device does is that they'll take the card and they'll run it through the skimmer, so that has your information on there, but nothing's happened yet. You don't physically know anything happened. And then they'll run it through the restaurant's machine. So they'll charge you for the meal, you'll write off, and you'll sign off, and you'll think everything went through fine. But in reality, it just took your identity, and if a person in a restaurant did this several times over the course of a shift, you could see this could be a pretty lucrative operation. My advice to you is this. If you don't feel comfortable with your card leaving your site, watch the transaction happen in person. It is your card. You have the right to see it happen, the transaction actually physically happen. So I'd advise you to make sure, if you don't feel comfortable, make sure that you physically see that transaction happen. Now, I also want to point out that this doesn't happen everywhere you go. Now, these are just certain cases that we're seeing and how these devices are used. So the next thing we're going to look at is our scams, and they happen in a number of different ways. They'll happen through the telephone, the mail, the computer, and text messaging. This is the really important part where I want you guys to get a good idea of what these scams are, what some are called, what they sound like, what they're asking for, and some of the red flags to be aware of. The first one we have is our charitable contributions scam. Does anyone here give to charity? Anyone? Okay, I see a few hands go up. I do myself. It's great. But identity thieves take advantage of our good faith. And what they do is they'll call us. And we may see, I'm going to pick the Pittsburgh Fire Department here, just as an example. You may see on your caller ID that it says Pittsburgh Fire Department on there, and you see a 412 number, and you answer. And someone says, hello, I'm from the Pittsburgh Fire Department. How would you like to give to our fundraiser or whatever it is? And you say, that sounds great. And you want to give, and you do. Well, just because you saw the caller ID say Pittsburgh Fire Department doesn't really mean it was the Pittsburgh Fire Department. I don't trust my caller ID for anything except for one number. And that's when my in-laws call, and I tell my wife, you have to answer the phone. I can't answer it. But my point is that we need to really be aware. There's something called, what identity thieves use, is a spoofing device. And what a spoofing device is, it allows you to enter any information to appear on that caller ID. So technically, I could be in Australia if I wanted to, and use this spoofing device and type in Pittsburgh Fire Department on it. And then I can type in the number of what I want to appear on there. And I could call you from anywhere and pretend to be someone. It doesn't take much nowadays with the internet to do a little bit of research, find out what a phone number is, what an address is, what's the name of the business, and put this in the device. So just because someone asks you to give, don't feel obligated. Just because someone calls you and says they're from somewhere, you don't always believe them. If it's a legitimate organization and you ask them, hey, can you mail me something, a little bit more information on what your cause is? They'll have no problem doing that, legit organizations. What scammers will do, they'll just hang up, because what you just did was, in their eyes, gave them resistance. You asked more questions back. They just want you to blindly give. And when you do that, that's how you can determine if it's a real organization or not. Again, real organizations will mail you something, and you'll see what's going on with them. Scammers won't. So you be aware that just don't blindly give. You're going to see in a lot of these scams here in a moment that you're going to have people contacting you and wanting you to give information. Here again, they're calling you. Don't give out personal information on an incoming call, unless you know them, of course. But in this case, just do not give out information on an incoming call. Our next big scam we see is the lottery and sweepstakes scam. Has anyone ever got the letter in the mail, you may be the big winner? Okay, I see some hands. The international lottery we hear of and things of this nature. It happens all the time. I think I got a letter twice a week, and I won the international lottery twice last week. Did I win? No. But what they're trying to do is get you excited, and you'll see this, that scammers work off of your emotions to make you do something that you normally wouldn't do, whether it's an emotion of being excited or an emotion of being scared and fearful of a loved one and what's going on with them. In this case, it's an emotion of being excited. Say you may get a phone call or a letter saying that you won the Jamaican lottery for $50,000. But before we can mail this money to you, we need you to pay on the taxes, and we need you to wire it. We need you to wire us $2,500. And once we get that money transfer, we'll be more than happy to mail you that check. Well, you think, I just won $50,000. This is great. But in reality, you didn't win anything. You see, they're trying to get you to wire that money, and that's a big thing. If you're going to remember something with scams, wiring money, they want you to wire money, and there's a reason why. That once you give that confirmation code, once you complete that wire, there's no turning back. You can't reverse the transaction. Another big thing that we're seeing now, and I'm sure you can attest this, Detective, is that we're seeing, you guys know what money pack cards are, or green dot cards from Walmart? You guys ever heard of these? They're kind of like prepaid Visa cards, more or less, that they have a certain amount on there. Think of them kind of like a gift card, but you can use anywhere. And they want you to buy these and then read off the numbers. So these are two red flags you should immediately hear when you hear of someone calling you or contacting you. Be aware of wiring money, them asking you for that, and buying green dot cards or money pack cards. These are two red flags right off the bat. And that's basically what the lottery or sweepstakes winnings is that I also want to say you never have to pay up front on taxes for winning money. You never have to. Has anyone ever won the lottery for a significant amount of money or won any where they take taxes? They take the taxes out first and then give you what your earnings are. You never have to pay up front to get winnings later. Our next scam is our family emergency scam, or what we call our grandma and grandpa scam. Has anyone ever heard of this? Our grandma and grandpa scam? Okay. This deals, again, I told you that identity thieves work on emotions, right? This one's an emotion of being scared for a loved one. And what may happen is you get a phone call and someone says on the other side, this is the Mexican police. We have your granddaughter in jail and we need you to wire $500. Remember how I said wiring's a red flag? We need you to wire $500 to bail her out. Well, again, they're working off of our emotions, and we get nervous. We don't want our grandkids to be in trouble. We would wire them the money in hopes that they would release them. If this happens to you, though, I want you to be very cautious and let cooler heads prevail. Think this one out. If you get a phone call like this, I want you to hang up and call whoever the person was that they're saying who it was, but they usually never say the name because they don't know who it is. But if you only have one grandson, per se, Call that person's parent or the grandson directly to find out what happened. Is this really going on? Have you heard any information out about this? I had a gentleman about a month and a half ago in Westmoreland County tell me he had the same thing happen to him, where he got a phone call saying that his grandson's in jail, and he just guessed the name of one of his grandsons. I'm going to say he said Bob. And he said, yes, we have Bob in jail. Well, the scammers didn't know what his grandson's name was. He guessed it, and he gave it to them. So he got nervous, and he said, well, okay, I have your number on the caller ID or whatever. I'll call you back. He picked up the phone immediately and called his son, who was his grandson's father, and said, have you talked to Bob lately? He said, yeah, he's getting ready for dinner sitting next to me. What's going on? What do you need him for? You see, he did the right thing. He was scared, but he wanted to make sure that what he was hearing is true. Is his grandson really in jail? And he wasn't. That was a scammer trying to get his money from him. So please, if this happens to you, please let cooler heads prevail. Another big thing that we're seeing is people pretending to be your grandson directly. I know a friend of mine, his grandmother just had this happen to him, that someone called his grandmother's house and said, Grandma, it's me. And because it was a man's voice on the other side of the phone, she guessed her grandson's name and said, yeah, it's me, Mike. Hey, listen, I got a flat tire on 376, and Mom and Dad can't know about it. I took the car out. Really need you to wire me $200. Just please don't tell them about this. Just keep this between us. You can't tell them, Grandma, please. We're really close. Don't tell them. And she thought this sounded funny. So she called my friend immediately, and he said, that wasn't me. That was probably a scam. She did the right thing in that situation. But again, it's always some type of emergency where they want to work off of our emotions and try to get us to do something that we normally wouldn't do. So please be aware of that. Our next scam we have is our credit card and bank account verification scam. And nowadays with credit cards, we have the fraudulent purchases alerts on our credit cards. If there was a fraudulent purchase, they would call us, notify us, let us know about it. Well, scammers know about this too, and they pretend to be these credit card companies. And you may get a phone call from one of them saying, this is named the big credit card company here. Did you purchase a $500 camera in San Francisco just right now? And you'd say, well, I didn't purchase that. And they say, not to worry, ma'am. We're here to take care of that and make sure that it comes off of your account. But just to prove it's you, we need the last 4 digits of your bank account number. Or we need the last 4 digits of your Social Security account. Something that identifies you. And you give that to them. And you're thinking that you're getting this fraudulent purchase taken off of your account, but in reality, it's a scammer trying to get that last missing piece that if you have a bank account and you didn't shred your mail, and the one bank of the numbers is blanked out on the mail, you gave them that last missing piece of the puzzle that they needed to complete your bank account information. If this happens to you, and this is why it's so important, I said, to keep record of what the phone numbers are, who to call if your cards are taken. If this happens to you, take out your credit card, turn it over. There's a phone number on the back. Call that phone number. Ask, I just got this phone call. Someone said there was a fraudulent purchase. Make sure that this is actually who it was and there was actually a fraudulent purchase. It may take you 10 minutes. But that's the difference. That 10 minutes is the difference of becoming a victim or not becoming a victim. And again, don't let the person on the other side of the phone say, here's the number you need to call back. Because what they'll do is they'll give you the phone number to the guy sitting next to them, and they'll pick up the phone. Use the number on the back of the card to call. Remember, don't give out information on an incoming call to someone you don't know. This next one I'm just going to touch real quick. This is our government grants and credit repair scams. These have been around forever. You know the gist of it. We can repair your credit in less than 30 days. Some grand scheme that they're trying to come up with and make you think that it actually works. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. So please just don't partake in that. Our last Our last scam is called the Nigerian 419 scam. And what 419 is the criminal code for theft in Nigeria. What this scam entails is that you may get a letter from someone from another country, and it may look something like this, that it says, I'm a prince from somewhere, and I have $5 million in an account. And I need to convert it into US dollars, but I don't want to exchange it. I want to put it through your account. And once you give me your bank account number, I'll put it through your account, and I'll give you 30% of whatever transfers through. Now, you probably think you're nuts, right? I would never fall victim for this. But I can attest that I've met several people that have. I've heard of several cases. I'm sure, Detective, you've probably seen this before, have heard of this scam. This does happen. Again, I told you that scammers work off of your emotions, and usually $5 million, they say, that's a low number. Usually it's an absurd amount of money that they want to use your bank account through to funnel the money in. Please, if you get a letter like this, do not get involved. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. We always heard that saying, and it really is the case here. So just to review a few things about our scams is one, never give out personal information. You've heard me say that several times. Never give out personal information on an incoming call. Never provide banking or credit card numbers. We've talked about that. Never complete unsolicited surveys or pop-ups. Now, we didn't discuss this, but I want to mention it real quick, is that when we sign up for winning free things, when you ever see win this free cruise, just sign up. Win this car, just sign up. We're not just signing up to win that. We're signing up to get a bunch of phone calls and a bunch of things in the mail, because that information is then sold off to third parties. And what happens is some of the people that buy that information can be scammers, ID thieves, and now you're opening up that gate for them to contact us. So please don't enter every win this free trip, win this free car, whatever it is. You're really opening up the floodgates to be contacted by people, and sometimes when they sell that information, they're selling it to a scammer. Never donate before you verify the charity. We talked about that with our charitable contributions. Never trust the caller ID display. We discussed that with our spoofing device. Never withdraw cash and wire it to a stranger. And lastly, never pay for taxes or fees up front in hopes for a larger payout in the end. We talked about that with our lottery and sweepstakes winnings. Here I have a picture of some people on cell phones sitting out in front of a store. And at the bottom I have scammers waiting for your money. Now, knowing based off of what we've talked about, the method of how scammers want us to pay us, why do you think I said that this photo could depict scammers waiting for our money? What do you see in that picture? What's that? Side-by-side phones. Okay, they could be calling you right now. There's one other big giveaway. If they look on the building, do you see anything? An emblem? MoneyGram. You're absolutely right. This MoneyGram right here. This is a widely known wiring transferring company. Again, there's nothing wrong with these companies, but scammers use them because they know once the transaction's complete that there's no turning back. So here's your granddaughter stuck on the side of the road needing you to fix her flat tire, wiring her the money. Here's a gentleman telling you that your granddaughter's in jail and you need to wire her the money. These are the scammers on the phone. So that's why we have this picture up to give you an idea. This is what we're talking about here. So we're going to take a look lastly at some trickery online, and we're going to talk again about spoofing and what some of the scams look like online with our computers. But before I do that, I want to introduce you to two vocabulary words that deal with identity theft online. And the first one we have here is phishing. Now, this is a scam that's done by email that's sent to redirect you to another site. And I'll talk about that here in a minute. The second word we have here is spoofing. Now, I've mentioned that word prior already with our caller IDs, but in this case, this is the reproduction of a website, but it's a fake website, and they'll use logos of companies that we know and trust. So when we combine these two words into a scam, what basically happens is you'll get an email, and you may get an email from, here we have the IRS. This is a fake website. And it may say in there, your account, our information has been breached. Please click on this link below and re-enter in your information so it's now on our secure side of things. And again, scammers are working off your emotions. You don't want your information taken, so you immediately click that link and you're redirected to this site. And it looks legit. There's the IRS's symbol. I mean, there's an American flag. And at a quick look, you wouldn't think anything of it. But some of the information that they're asking for is our social security number, our credit card numbers, our ATM PIN numbers. This isn't information the IRS wants. This is a fraudulent website trying to get us to enter that information in so that we think that our information isn't being breached. But in reality, they hijacked these logos, created this website so that they could take our identities. Yes, sir. You're absolutely right. He said when the IRS contacts you, it'll be by mail. They won't email you. And another thing that I think is funny is that the IRS will never ask for your social security number. They'll give it to you. They knew what it was before you knew what it was, right? And I think it's kind of funny when you think of it. Yes, sir.
Last month I was called by the IRS, I think 3 times. And I called back one time on a cell phone, and the guy that answered said, "What number were you calling from?" And I live in Mount Lebanon. I called the police. They came out and they said, "There's no way to track these people." And I just, I was appalled. He says, "I couldn't get a phone from anywhere." I said, "But I called back." And he says, "We can't do anything." I just, you're helpless, and I don't know.
It's frustrating. It is. No, I understand what you mean, but I think in this case, we're talking about the IRS. It's important to understand they're not going to call you. They're not going to email you. They'll notify you by mail. And we need to understand that. We'll see a lot of times people pretend to be the IRS right around tax season. I know this happened to someone in our office, had a voicemail on his home phone saying, "This is the IRS. Call us back right now. You owe us back money in taxes. If you ignore this phone call, legal action will be taken against you," in a very stern voice. And it sounds scary, right? The IRS is coming after me. It was a scam. It was a scam. And we need to remember that they're not going to call us. They'll contact us by mail. We always need to be aware of that. Just some quick tips real quickly with the computers. And when we're online, do you guys do any shopping online? Perhaps anyone do any shopping, bill paying online? Okay, I see some hands go up. One of the things I want you to look for next time in the address bar where we type in the web address that we're going to, before it says www. There's that HTTP and the backslashes. Now that's always there, but the moment you go to enter in personal information, say you're on a website and you're buying a mattress, and the moment you click the add to cart and you have to enter in your bank account information, that HTTP changes to HTTPS. Think of S for secure. It's always done it, you just never realized it was there. Another big thing is that we have this lock up here. Look for the lock. That means that it's okay to enter in that information. Of course, if you're going to have accounts online, make sure that you create unusual passwords. The most common password is password. It's funny, but people do it. If you're going to create a password, put a capital letter in there. Put a number in there, maybe a special character like an exclamation point. The more complex it is, it's going to be harder for someone to get. If you're going to use the computer, make sure you have updated firewall or security software to make sure everything's okay if there's a virus coming in. Don't open emails from users you don't know. We talked about this. You're really opening up that floodgate. We talked about that junk email. Just delete it. You really don't need to open it. Don't complete forms or surveys on sites. We talked about that with completing unsolicited surveys. It's the same thing where they can take that information and sell it off to third parties. Don't follow links to sites you don't know. Make sure you're not just blindly clicking on links and you could end up somewhere you really don't want to be. And lastly, don't provide any personal information to anyone. Again, this is the idea that if someone's contacting you and asking for personal information, don't give it out. You contact them. That's the other thing we need to be aware of. Incoming people calling us or emailing us asking for personal information. Don't give out the information. Lastly, we have some security devices that I want to show you guys that I think it's important to keep some of our stuff safe. And the first thing we have up here is a fireproof box. And you'll see some different personal items in there. But if you're going to have one of these, if you have a safe or specifically this, make sure it's bolted to the ground. Nothing can easily pick that up and break it open. But make sure you have something like this to keep your specific store club cards at home, your Social Security cards at home, passports, things like this. Over here, we have a mailbox, and within the mailbox, there's a little slit with a keyhole. With this mailbox, someone just can't open up your mailbox and take your mail. Rather, the mail's put through that slit, and when you go to the mailbox, you unlock it and you can get your mail out. And lastly, this is a shredder down here. We talked about this earlier, but there's two different types of shredders. There's one that just shreds vertically, and there's one they call a cross-cut shredder, which kind of cuts it into confetti pieces of paper. Make sure you get the cross-cut shredder, you use the cross-cut shredder. It does a really good job of really destroying that document so no one can get a hold of your personal information. Now, this brings me to the end of the presentation, and I want to thank you guys for being very attentive. I really do hope that you learn some things here and some little tips and tricks to keep yourself safe at home. I'll be here to answer any questions you have, and I'm sure the other people that are here will absolutely answer any questions you have as well. But again, my name is Philip Little, and I'm the Education and Outreach Specialist with the Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General. And on behalf of the office and our Attorney General, Kathleen Kane, I want to thank you guys for coming out. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Philip. Everyone, my name is Jake Pollack. I'm Senator Smith's Chief of Staff, and now we're going to turn to the question and answer portion of the program. So actually, Philip, if you wanted to stay up here, and Chief Mackey, Detective Pagasino, if you would like to join us up front here, just so that if anyone has any questions, we can then get them an answer to that. I think Judge Ruggiano is going to be joining us up front here in a moment as well. So everyone, if you have a question, just please raise your hand, and I'll repeat the question and then refer it to someone who can help you. Sorry.
I have a couple of questions I brought on you, but anyhow, what exactly is on the magnetic stripe on a credit card?
Okay, great. So the question, just so everyone can hear it, is what is on the magnetic strip on a credit card, and maybe how is that information used to steal someone's identity? What can they gain from that?
Everybody knows there's a strip there.
Sure.
And what kind of information is on that?
Sure. That's a great question. So, I mean, I don't know, Phil, maybe that's a question you would want to answer, or anybody?
What's on that magnetic strip is basically any information, your bank account information, your name, things like this. Another thing I want to bring up that I don't talk about is some of you guys use hotels, they give you the card to go ahead and enter the key. All your information is on that card. So that's something, if you ever leave a hotel, take the card with you. Just don't leave it sitting around. Again, these are things that happen very rarely, but they can. And it's something you might want to be careful of just laying around. So it has your information on it. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
All cards have the magnetic strip, but there's new cards coming out, and this is one of them. This is the card that I carry. But there's a chip now in some of the new credit cards. Any of you seen this? It's actually a little chip. And that's what some of the credit card companies are going to now. It's a higher end technology that they're using to sort of help secure and for identity theft. But the fact of the matter is, as more advancements in crime prevention occur and happen, the criminals are getting more advanced as well. but the chip is the new way to go. All your information is in the magnetic strip and in the chip, and it's important you do protect it. A lot of credit cards now, and this is a good thing as well, have your picture on it. And that's another good thing that you can do. If you have your picture on the credit card, that's another good way that you can help. Anything that you can do to help protect yourself. The tips that Agent Phillips has given here, and there's many others that I'm glad that you discussed with you.
I do have one more.
Sure.
And it's I don't know if you classify this as a question, but if you take your card out, okay, you have valuable information on your medical card. And I'm wondering, since there is such a problem with identity theft, why don't they find a different set of numbers to identify you other than the number that's on it?
So I think just to make sure I understand the question right, sir, you're asking because your Medicare card or an insurance card or any sort of form of ID like that. Sure. Why, given that information is so valuable, why is that the information that's on the card, and rather than having some sort of different number to identify you on the card?
I feel that it should, because most people carry their Medicare card with them.
Sure.
Okay, it has valuable information on it with just that number. I remember years ago when I was in the service, my number in the service was a different set of numbers than my Social Security number.
Sure. So I actually think that there are probably.
I think, I think somebody, you go show your Medicare card when you go to Mass this thing for your flu shot.
Sure.
You go on public transportation, you show your Medicare card.
Sure. So I think there are a couple interesting points that you made in that question, and anybody can jump at any point, but just to maybe cover some of the basics. Unfortunately, some degree of exposure is impossible to avoid. The reason there is a number, there are valid reasons that have nothing to do with identity theft for why identifying numbers appear on your driver's license or your Medicare card, as you pointed out, or Social Security card, but those numbers do actually identify you for valid reasons within the systems that those entities use them for. I mean, the reason your driver's license number is on your driver's license is because that identifies you to the Department of Transportation. Same with Medicare, same with Medicaid. I think that the most important thing to do, and I think what Phil's presentation showed us, is how to protect that information and not make it too readily available to people other than those intended users who need to have access to that for good reasons to give you service. The question about why Social Security numbers are so frequently used by multiple agencies and entities as a unique identifier is just one maybe I'll kick over to the experts. But first, is there anything that any of you have to add to his initial question and then maybe the part about Social Security?
Sure. I think it's important to understand, too, that we can have as much defensive security as we want, but not even Fort Knox is safe. Let's just be honest. If someone wants to get something at any moment, they can. But I think it's important that we have these little tips and tricks and steps to make it that much harder. It's kind of like the idea that a door keeps an honest, a locked door keeps an honest man away. And when we keep this information not laying out, when we make sure we don't give information out on incoming call, it keeps us more protected. But there's nothing in the world that's going to keep us 100% safe at all times. I think it's just important to understand that, but rather these tips and tricks are going to keep us better off than
I'm just looking for an extra roadblock, that's all.
Sure.
And it just, I just, feel down the line. Maybe you wouldn't have 10 million frauds, maybe have 5 million instead of 10 million. If that number wasn't available
You know, it's a great question, but, you know, right now, it just seems like that is how we identify ourselves, and I don't have that answer for you. I do apologize.
Well, I understand.
It's just a frustration thing.
Thank you very much for your questions. Any other questions from the audience? You, sir?
At this point, one thing I noticed was when I turned 65 and I signed up for Medicare, and then I got my Medicare Advantage plan. Okay, and I carried that part of it, and I never carried my Medicare part. Okay, I've never had a problem. I always ensure that. That's all I need. But I don't write a question.
I don't have a Medicare Advantage card. I think I just carry my Medicare card. So.
Thank you for the insight, though, so that was a great tip for some folks that might be applicable. You, sir?
Yeah, I have a question. You indicated that a copying machine retains the information that it's copied. Well, I have a machine that broke down, and I was ready to throw it in the trash. Now, I guess I better not do that.
So I'll just repeat the question so that everybody can hear before you respond. The question is specifically about the portion of the presentation where it was noted that photocopying machines, some of them, I think the more modern ones, retain, they store images of what was copied digitally on the machine rather than simply producing a copy only on a piece of paper. And the gentleman asking the question is saying that he has a broken photocopy machine that he was preparing to get rid of. And I think the question is, how can you dispose of that in a way that's safe and ensures that the information that you were running through the machine is not compromised in any way?
Sure, and I think it's important to note, Jake's absolutely right, it's more the modern machines. So if you just have a typical scanner at home that you probably paid less than $100 for, you know, nothing, just real basic home use, you really don't have to worry about something. This is one of those ones that an office uses that's very high tech, that's several $1,000s we're talking about, that has this memory card that takes a memory of what was photocopied. But with any old device, there's different electronics outlets that do take old electronics such as TVs, some old computer monitors, and some old electronic equipment as well. So that might be something you want to look into. But I would say that you're probably pretty safe with just a home use printer scanner, and you throw it out. That's not going to be too much of an issue.
They were, oh, sorry, sir, go ahead.
I just have one more question.
Excuse me.
If you use like a...
If you can put a pin burn lines in the back of your
So the question is, if you use, in Philip's presentation, he talks a lot about keeping copies of your vital information separate from cards, rather than only having your credit card numbers on the cards themselves, and then you lose them. Now you don't have the information necessary to make a report or otherwise deal with the situation. If you choose to retain that information on your computer using some sort of, on your computer hard drive using some sort of software designed to help keep track of those things, and what is the risk factor there? And is it safer to do that digitally versus, maybe in a hard copy? And what's the best practice for protecting that information? Does anybody want to take a step?
Best practice in protecting the information on your smartphones.
I think he was asking about sort of keeping account numbers or.
You use Microsoft Outlook, for example. Okay, instead of writing down your credit card information on a piece of paper,
Store it on the computer.
Yeah, you choose to put it on a software program like that and keep it there, and even if it's password protected, you probably will pay it. But if it's not, I'll say that.
You brought up a good point. First of all, it should be on your computer, obviously you want to make sure you have, as Agent Phillips alluded to, the malware, software, make sure that your computer is secure and you have the firewall protection. That's what's going to protect your information, because at the end of the day, there's so much stored in your computer that you don't even really think about. If somebody, a hacker, really wanted to get into your computer and hack it, they can get all the information out. So that's the key, is your anti-malware, software, firewall protection. That's really the key to protecting, because I do that, and a lot of people do that. They put a lot of their information on the computer and your smartphones. The smartphones are really what's scary today. That's a whole other thing we could get into, but that'd be for another day. But the key is common sense and making sure that you are protecting and using the different tools that you have, and certainly check your credit report through Experian and through the other Equifax and TransUnion. Make sure that you're checking up on your credit. If you see any red flags, mistakes on your bank account, mistakes on medical benefits, your regular bill accounts, bill collection, notices that don't look right that you're receiving in the mail or in emails, unwarranted collection notices, all that kind of stuff. Any red flags that you see, you need to be attentive to that and make sure that you're protecting yourself and your interests and your family's interests, so that you're going to be protected from identity theft.
That point actually brings us, I'll come back to you in a minute, but that point brings us to a good question that was written down and sent from the back of the room. And that question is about online banking, which is related to some of what we're discussing. The question is, how safe is online banking? Now, I know, Philip, you mentioned briefly at the end of your presentation some ways you can verify that the websites you're visiting are secure and legitimate, looking at the sort of the green tag at the end of the web address. But with respect to online banking, and how safe is that? Is it a convenience that we're maybe taking some risk in using, or can you view it as being as safe as visiting your bank?
I think it's important, again, to understand that I always say it's important not to use. But I can tell you on personal side, I've done online banking for 10 years now, and I've never had an issue whatsoever with my online banking. All my bills are online. And what I look for is the exact information that I showed you. Is I look for that X. I think of S for secure. I look for that block. Make sure that it's there. I don't blindly just plug my information anywhere without verifying that either one of those things are there. I think it's important to know that. But unfortunately, we do live in an age where nothing is 100% secure. Personally, I've never had any issues. I've never really come across too many people that have had major issues. They take precaution and not just buy off the website that they don't really know who they're dealing with.
After the Agent Comments, I've been in investigations for 10 years. I've yet to work a case where an online banking site got hacked. So that tells you that it's pretty secure. I think what's very important is that you always check your statements. A lot of people get their bank statements and set it aside. Their credit card statements, set them aside, don't look at them. Anything that looks suspicious on those, like I mentioned before, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Call the company, call the bank, call the police departments if you have any questions. I think that's what's important to do, is keep track of your credit card statements, your bank statements, know where your money is going.
Thank you. And just one more question that was written in before, then we'll go back to the audience for questions. One of the attendees had a question about machines that can scan for information, be it maybe on your phone or on a credit card, something like that, through your purse or wallet. I think they're referring to perhaps devices that can, just walking down the street can grab your information. I don't know if anybody's got any comments on that.
It's called an RFID chip, radio frequency identification. And a lot of cars you'll see when you go to a kiosk to pay. It looks like a little rainbow almost, like a universal symbol. Just 3 little arches all underneath each other, each one getting smaller. You'll see them on some cards. And when it is done, you can wave that card over the top of the machine, and that's how the transaction is done. Well, identity thieves have those machines, they can have them in their pockets. They don't have to physically touch you. If you have that chip in your card, they can walk right past you, and they now have your information. But they make something called an RFID wallet, which I'm probably sure you have one. Okay, this gentleman right here looks very similar to that. It's just a sleeve now of fabric that basically doesn't allow that radio frequency to transmit out. That now that no one can walk just simply past you, it's in that sleeve, and now you can't be taken.
Thank you. Audience questions. Ma'am, you had your hand up.
In reference to your computer needs, if you're going to destroy your computer by taking the recycling, take the motherboard out. It will take all the information that is on your computer, and you have that as a chip. And then take a hand with the measuring on this thing, and you will destroy all your information.
Okay, so just maybe to rephrase that, I think your comment was about ways to treat your computer before you're disposing of it to make sure that it is that your information can't be gathered from it after the fact. You suggested, damaging the motherboard to prevent that from being processed as it is. Any other thoughts there?
Yeah, just sort of hard.
Yeah. So it's important to consider that you want to work on both of those strategies. Ma'am, I believe there's a question over here.
I didn't have sort of a question. I was given a tip that whenever this supposedly comes from the Discover card, that when you're pumping gas and you use your credit card, when you're finished, get the cancel button. Yeah. Because somebody can come right behind you, whatever the whole thing is, and get your card.
So the suggestion there was that when you're pumping gas using your credit card at the pump, once you completed your transaction, hit the cancel button before you leave rather than simply pulling away to make sure that the transaction is completed in the system. No one can come up behind you and get your information. Ma'am?
If you take, what you mentioned, if you take your information to like Office Depot, and you get like a Medicare card scan there, they have that data in their system.
Just to repeat the question again so everybody can hear it, if you, for whatever reason, need a scan or a copy of a piece of sensitive information, say you need to send it in the mail or something like that, and so you want to have a copy of it, and you utilize a service like Office Depot or Kinko's or whomever, you don't have that ability to do it at home, so you go to a public place. Do those providers retain a copy of that information after you utilize it?
I don't know specifically, but I'm going to generally say that they're using a high-end printer, which they probably are, yes. My advice again to you, if you make a copy, if you're using a Social Security card, blank out some of the numbers on there. So now the copy does not have all the numbers on that drive. You can fill in the numbers after the copy's out. Well,
Thank you, ma'am. And I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions, so then I know you have your hand up.
We had a lot of conversation about ways to do all that. I feel we fall for that. What about Sundays? Most, I don't have nothing so severe. When I talk to law enforcement or basically tell the same thing. You know, do this, that. There's no equal, And, I have extreme I'm very upset, I argue with utility companies about my social security number to give me an account. It's like, are you paying? Because my card, I don't know anybody else, but my card says it's federal law, you should social security number for an application. And I say that we should be going to have federal law to do this. But, I'm not getting like you
feedback on where to go to remedy.
So I think the question is, we've talked a lot about ways to prevent your identity from being compromised. If it is what,
It's gonna happen.
yeah, sure. So if that occurs to you, what should you do to then resolve that situation?
What is the best channel to go through track it down?
Sure. I'll allow the experts to answer that question, but I think obviously the first step is to report it to the police and to the Attorney General's office. So thankfully we have the right people here. I don't know who wants to start with that.
I'm not gonna lock you into this. This is for a pathway, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, unfortunately, and I think Detective Bianco will tell you, it's very difficult to follow up on some of these scams. I'll give you a classic example. Back in April, I was in Myrtle Beach, and I went to check out of the hotel, and I gave them not only my Visa card, I gave them my FBI Visa card. And the girl swiped it on the computer, and she said, "I'm sorry, your card's denied." So I said, "Could you please swipe it again?" And she did, and it was denied. So I said, "Could you try that computer?" She swiped it, and it was denied. So I'm thinking, oh boy, what happened here? So I gave her then my PNC Visa card. She swiped it, and it was denied. And I gave her my Chase Visa card. She swiped it, it was denied. Now I'm thinking, oh boy, I'm in deep trouble here. So the first thing I did was I called the number on my FBI card, and they said, "Well, were you in Bolingbrook, Illinois yesterday at Home Depot?" And I said, "No, I wasn't." They said, "Well, we have 7 charges at Home Depot, and 5 of them are for the same exact amount, $83.57, and the next 2 were for $87.25. I said, "No, I didn't make those charges. I'm in Myrtle Beach. I'm not in Illinois." So they said, "Okay, we're going to cancel your card. We'll reissue another one. You're not responsible for the charges, and we'll send you an affidavit to sign that you didn't make the charges." Well, that's all well and good. It didn't cost me anything. I got a new card. How could we possibly follow up on that complaint? Number one, I'm not going to go to Illinois to file an identity theft complaint. To this day, I have no idea how somebody ended up with my card number and were able to use it. So I was fortunate. It was a couple $100 that I wasn't responsible for. But one of the things that we deal with a lot here in Bethel Park, just as an example for you ladies, if you're shopping at Market District or Shop and Save, wherever you do your shopping, please don't walk away from the shopping cart and leave your purse in the cart. There are people in the stores just waiting for somebody to do that. They grab your wallet or your credit card, and they immediately run to Best Buy or Southfield Village or Kohl's, and they just start banging out your card before you even know what happened. So that's one of the big problems we've seen here. One other thing I just wanted to touch on briefly because it was brought up is about banking. I'm still old-fashioned. I don't have direct deposit, and I don't pay my bills online. I get my paycheck every 2 weeks. I cash it, deposit some, and I keep cash. I like to pay cash for most things if I can. It wasn't until last week that I actually got a debit card, and I was quite embarrassed when I went to use it last week for the first time ever. I explained to the clerk, "You may or may not believe this, but I've never used a debit card before. Tell me what to do." So they swiped it and everything was good. Yeah, I still write out on my bills. I know that may sound silly. I know the envelope says save stamp to it online. I write it out. I balance my checkbook. I want to know. And that goes with what Detective Paganico said. When my bank statements come in, I study them very, very closely. I've only found one mistake. I wrote a check for $60, and it was to a utility company. But when it was cashed for $600. Somewhere along the line, somebody made it $600, and the bank paid out on it. I wasn't responsible for that one either. But you have to really keep track of your money.
I have a dear friend that's a banker, and he told me he said, well, when I use my debit card, I'm not to use the PIN, use it as a visa. He says it's more secure than getting your contact.
Right, that's kind of the way I use mine. They swipe the card like it was a credit card. I didn't have to enter any PIN information. But again, I think the more control that you take over your own finances and personal information, you'll be much better off.
Okay, thank you very much for your thoughts. Thank you to everyone for the questions. Unfortunately, we do have to urapp up the program because they need to use it for something. So thank you so much for coming. If you have any further questions, you can reach out to our office. Our reps are here to meet on the back table. So thank you again.